Commander Thozar of the Arxian dreadnought Eternal Vigilance stared at the tactical display, his crystalline appendages refracting the harsh blue light of the command center. The holographic projection showed yet another perfect stalemate. His ship had just neutralized a voidborn ambush in the Cygnus Delta sector, but lost 3 cruisers in the process. 78 crew members gone, their consciousness matrices unable to be recovered from the quantum backups in time. Status report, Thozar demanded, his voice creating harmonic resonances that the ship's systems translated into commands. Sub-Commander Ixhel approached, her crystalline form slightly less developed than Thozar's, indicating her younger age, a mere 600 years compared to his millennium of service. The Voidborn Shadow Fleet has withdrawn to the nebula's edge, she reported. Their energy signatures suggest significant damage to their command vessel. We estimate 40% of their attack force has been neutralized. And our losses? Thozar asked, already knowing the answer. 39% of our engagement force, Ixhel replied. Tactical equilibrium maintained. As always. Thozar's crystalline structure dimmed slightly in what his species recognized as frustration. For 3,000 years, the cosmic scales had remained perfectly balanced. The Arxian Collective's crystalline ships and their mastery of quantum mechanics clashed endlessly with the shadow vessels of the Voidborn Empire and their manipulation of dark energy. Their war had transformed nebula into graveyards and reduced life-bearing planets into barren asteroid fields. From his viewport, Thozar could see the remnants of the battle still playing out. A damaged Voidborn destroyer, its hull breached and leaking dark energy plasma, limped away from the engagement zone. 2 Arxian frigates pursued, their quantum lances charging for the kill shot. The Voidborn vessel suddenly inverted its energy signature, a suicide tactic that would take the Arxian pursuers with it. A brilliant flash of light, then nothing. More lives lost in a war that seemed as fundamental to the galaxy as the stars themselves. Prepare a dimensional fold, Thozar ordered. Return to Arxian Prime for resupply and crew rotation. As the massive dreadnought's engines charged, Thozar received a priority communication from Arxian High Command. His private crystalline receptor vibrated with the secure frequency. The Voidborn have deployed a new weapon in the Orion sector, came the message from Supreme Resonators Xtar, a dark energy cascader that collapsed an entire star system. Casualties estimated at 3 billion Arxian colonists. Thozar's form stiffened. Our response. Already deployed. Our quantum destabilizers have been activated in the Voidborn colony cluster in Centaurus. Estimated Voidborn casualties, 3,200,000,000. Perfect equilibrium, even in atrocity. The same story played out across 1,000 battlefronts, spanning the spiral arm. Neither side could gain an advantage for more than a few cycles before the other adapted and responded in kind. The smaller spacefaring species of the galaxy had learned long ago to plot navigation routes that avoided this endless conflict, treating the war zones like navigating around black holes or solar flares, a deadly but permanent feature of the cosmos. Many younger civilizations had evolved from primordial ooze to starfaring societies during the course of this single, eternal war. To them, the Arxian Voidborn conflict was simply a fact of existence, as unchangeable as the laws of physics. As the Eternal Vigilance activated its dimensional fold drive, creating a temporary wormhole back to Arxian territory, Thozar received the daily war statistics. 42 engagements across 17 sectors, resulting in approximately 8 million casualties on each side. A perfectly balanced day in a perfectly balanced war that no one remembered how to end. The United Earth exploration vessel Horizon drifted silently in the shadow of a massive gas giant, its adaptive camouflage hull reflecting the swirling amber clouds below. The ship's design was elegant but utilitarian, the pride of Earth's nascent interstellar fleet, yet primitive compared to what its sensors now recorded. Captain Eliza Chen stood motionless on the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display dominating the command center. The massive three-dimensional projection showed two alien armadas exchanging weapons fire that seemed to bend the very fabric of space itself. Beams of quantum energy sliced through void-black ships that seemed to be made of solidified darkness, while those same shadow vessels released tendrils of dark energy that shattered crystalline vessels into molecular dust. "My God," whispered Commander Jackson, the Horizon's first officer. His normally steady hands gripped the railing so tightly his knuckles had turned white. "What are we witnessing?" "War," Chen replied simply, her voice steady despite the thundering of her heart. "On a scale humanity has never imagined." The Horizon had been charting unexplored systems in the Orion Spur when they detected unusual energy fluctuations from an abandoned moon. Investigation revealed the ruins of what appeared to be an observation post, not built by either of the warring parties they now observed, but by some other species that had been monitoring the conflict. Inside, they found star charts and data cores that, once decrypted, revealed the staggering scope of a war that had raged for 3 millennia. "Record everything," Chen ordered. "Every energy signature, every tactic, every communication frequency they're using." Lieutenant Santos, the ship's xenolinguist and communications officer, looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting what appears to be battlefield communications between the fleets. The quantum translator is struggling, but I think I can parse some of it with the lexical database we found at the observation post." "Do it," Chen nodded, never taking her eyes off the battle unfolding before them. "We're well outside their sensor range," Chief Engineer Patel reported, his fingers dancing over his console. "The gas giant's magnetosphere and our camouflage systems should keep us hidden. But those energy weapons they're throwing around, if even one stray shot hits us, there won't be enough left of the Horizon to fill a coffee cup." Chen finally turned, surveying her bridge crew, 20 of Earth's finest, representing a planet that had only achieved faster-than-light travel 40 years ago. They were explorers, not warriors, sent to chart stars and make peaceful contact with other intelligences. Instead, they had stumbled upon the edge of a war that made humanity's bloodiest conflicts seem like playground squabbles. Protocol dictated an immediate retreat. They should warp back to Earth, report their findings, and let the Security Council decide on next steps. The smart move would be to avoid contact with civilizations so vastly more advanced and clearly hostile. "Captain," Commander Jackson said quietly, reading her expression, "we should leave. Now." Chen's gaze returned to the battle. The crystalline vessel the size of Manhattan had just been split in two by a weapon that somehow created a localized black hole. The screams of dying aliens wouldn't travel through space, but she could imagine them nonetheless. "Lieutenant Santos," Chen said suddenly, "prepare the quantum translator." "Commander Jackson, power up our communication array." Jackson stared in disbelief. "Captain, that's a risk, yes," Chen finished for him. "But I've reviewed the historical records from the observation post. This war has been going on for longer than human civilization has existed, with neither side able to achieve victory." She gestured to the holographic display, where the battle continued with mathematical precision, each side inflicting and receiving almost identical casualties. Perhaps what they need is a perspective they've never considered. "Lieutenant Santos, open a channel to both fleets." As her crew reluctantly carried out her orders, Captain Eliza Chen made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. The meeting chamber aboard the neutral station Concordia crackled with tension. The hastily constructed facility orbited a barren planetoid in unclaimed space, built in just 3 weeks by automated human construction drones. It represented the fastest engineering project in Earth's history, authorized by an emergency session of the United Earth Security Council after Captain Chen's improbable success in arranging this historic summit. On one side of the circular chamber sat the Arxian delegation. Their crystalline bodies refracted the room's light into hypnotic patterns, their forms structured in precise geometric arrangements that humans now understood represented their social hierarchy. The lead diplomat, Grand Resonator Zilixar, towered over the others, its crystalline structure a complex lattice of blue-white formations that hummed with subtle vibrations, the Archean equivalent of nervous energy. Opposite them, separated by 20 meters of deliberately empty space, the Voidborn representatives waited. Unlike the solid, defined forms of the Archeans, the Voidborn existed as contained fields of dark energy, their bodies rippling like black flames within environmental suits that prevented their natural state from disrupting the station's systems. The Voidborn emissary, whose designation translated roughly as Voice of Infinite Darkness, pulsed with barely contained rage, tendrils of dark matter occasionally lashing out before being quickly reabsorbed. Between these ancient enemies stood Dr. Amir Kazemi, Earth's foremost xenodiplomat. His hands remained remarkably steady as he activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber, though sweat beaded at his temples beneath the harsh lighting. Representatives of the Archean Collective and the Voidborn Empire, he began, his voice amplified and simultaneously translated by the quantum linguistics system developed specifically for this meeting. Humanity thanks you for agreeing to this unprecedented summit. We came out of curiosity, the Archean Grand Resonator replied, its voice creating harmonic patterns that the translators converted to human speech. To see what manner of primitives would dare insert themselves into matters beyond their comprehension. The Voidborn emissary's form pulsed. For once, we agree with the crystal formations. Your species has existed for a mere eye blink. Our conflict predates your evolution from tree-dwelling mammals. Kazemi smiled, unfazed by the dismissal. That is precisely why we may offer value. He activated a series of tactical simulations on the holographic display, showing battle data compiled from the observation post records. Your weapons have evolved to counter each other perfectly. Your strategies have become so predictable to one another that this war can never end. The Archean representatives chimed in what humans now recognized as derisive laughter. What would primitives know of our sacred conflict? Kazemi nodded to his assistant, who activated the second phase of the presentation. We know something you've forgotten: how to end a fight without annihilating your opponent. The display shifted to show historical footage of human conflicts, from ancient battles to modern wars, followed by the peace treaties, reconciliation efforts, and eventually cooperative ventures between former enemies. Impossible, hissed the Voidborn emissary, its dark energy form rippling more violently. The Archean abominations cannot be reasoned with. Their very existence distorts the natural entropy of the universe. The Grand Resonator's crystalline structure flashed brightly in anger. The Shadow Dwellers seek to unravel the quantum foundations of reality itself. They must be eradicated for the safety of all ordered matter. Kazemi raised his hands for calm, stepping directly between the projections of ancient enemies who had slaughtered billions of each other's kind. Humanity has fought itself nearly to extinction multiple times, he said quietly, commanding attention through his calm intensity rather than volume. We've committed atrocities against our own kind over differences as small as skin pigmentation or religious belief. He looked between the delegations, making eye contact with alien beings whose concept of sight barely corresponded to human understanding. We learned the hard way what you haven't yet discovered. Sometimes victory comes not from destroying your enemy, but from changing the rules of engagement entirely. We don't claim superiority. We claim only the perspective of the outsider, who can see patterns invisible to those trapped within them. For the first time in 3 millennia, representatives of the warring species considered a third option, one presented by creatures they considered barely worth acknowledging. The silence that followed wasn't peace, but it was its distant ancestor, possibility. Lieutenant Sanjay Desai hadn't slept in 3 days. His quarters aboard the human diplomatic vessel Olive Branch had been transformed into an impromptu war room, every surface covered with holographic battle projections spanning millennia of the alien conflict. Empty coffee cups littered the floor, and the air recyclers struggled to clear the staleness from the sealed room. Clarissa, replay the Cygnus Delta engagement from Cycle 42,897. he instructed the ship's eye assistant. The holographic display shifted, showing a battle from nearly 400 years ago. Crystalline Arxian ships arrayed in perfect geometric formations faced off against the amorphous dark energy constructs of the Voidborn fleet. Desai watched intently as the battle unfolded. The initial Voidborn feint, the Arxian counterthrust, the symmetrical losses on both sides until both fleets withdrew in perfect equilibrium. Now show Helios sector. Cycle it went wrong. Cycle 43,211. Another battle appeared, with a startlingly similar pattern of engagement, despite occurring in a different sector with different fleet compositions. "There!" he exclaimed, his bloodshot eyes widening as his AI highlighted a pattern emerging across dozens of battle simulations. "Computer, extrapolate tactical evolution across all recorded engagements." The AI compiled the data, displaying a time-lapse of battle tactics evolving over 3,000 years. What emerged was a mesmerizing dance of action and reaction, innovation and countering adaptation, a perfect closed system of strategic development. "They're locked in strategic countermeasures," Desai muttered to himself. "But their perception of time, they're thinking in centuries, not moments." He tapped his communication implant. "Captain Chen, I need to see you immediately. I think I've found something." Across the ship, cultural anthropologist Dr. Maya Williams sat cross-legged on the floor of her lab, surrounded by data tablets displaying intercepted communications between Arxian and Voidborn vessels. For weeks, she had been analyzing the linguistic and cultural subtexts of these transmissions, looking for anything that might explain the intractable nature of the conflict. "Play intercepted communication 2781A again," she instructed her system. The audio filled the room, to human ears, a discordant chiming overlaid with subsonic rumbles that made her teeth ache, despite the system's attempt to render it in human tolerable frequencies. Williams studied the translation matrix, frowning at the anomalies that kept appearing. The quantum translator rendered the Arxian message as a formal declaration of territorial boundaries, but the Voidborn response indicated they had perceived it as a threat of imminent attack. She pulled up another exchange, then another, a pattern slowly emerging through the linguistic fog. "They're talking past each other," she realized, her heart racing with the implication. The Arxians communicate through crystalline resonance patterns. They perceive Voidborn energy speech as chaotic noise rather than language. Williams jumped to her feet, gathering her data tablets. She rushed through the corridors of the Olive Branch *, nearly colliding with other crew members in her haste. When she reached Lieutenant Desai's quarters, she found him already in discussion with Captain Chen. "It's not just strategy," Williams interrupted breathlessly. "They fundamentally misunderstand each other's intentions." Desai looked up, eyes bloodshot but mind racing, as he connected Williams' linguistic discovery with his strategic analysis. "Which means they've been fighting a war based on mutual misinterpretation for 3,000 years. Captain Chen looked between her two officers, the implications sinking in. "So when the Arxians send what they consider a reasonable demand, the Voidborn perceive an existential threat," Williams finished. "And when the Voidborn respond with what they think is a measured defense," Desai continued, "the Arxians see only aggression." Chen concluded, "A perfect feedback loop of escalation." Williams nodded grimly. "And we might be the only species who can see it." Chen straightened, a new determination in her stance. "Then we need to show them what we see. Prepare your findings for presentation at tomorrow's summit. This could be the breakthrough we've been looking for." The conference chamber aboard the Concordia fell into stunned silence as Lieutenant Desai and Dr. Williams completed their presentation. For 3 hours, they had methodically laid out their findings: the predictable battle patterns, the linguistic misinterpretations, the feedback loop of escalation that had trapped two advanced civilizations in an endless war. Captain Chen stepped forward into the uncomfortable silence. Her uniform was perfectly pressed despite the weeks of tense negotiations, a deliberate choice to project human formality and respect for the proceedings. "What my colleagues have discovered," she said, her voice calm but authoritative, "explains why neither side has been able to achieve victory despite your technological superiority. You're not really fighting each other. You're fighting distorted reflections of each other, created by fundamental misunderstandings." The Archean Grand Resonator's crystalline structure pulsed with frequencies that the translator interpreted as skepticism. "An interesting theory, Captain. But how will this change 3,000 years of irreconcilable differences?" Chen nodded to her technical officer, who activated the holographic display. "This is Earth," she said, the blue-green planet rotating slowly above the table. "A neutral world untouched by your conflict, where representatives of both your civilizations would live together." The Archean delegation's crystalline bodies chimed in what humans now recognized as dismissive laughter. "Coexist? Impossible." The Voidborn emissary's dark form rippled in agreement. "For once, the crystalline aberrations speak truth. Our fundamental natures are incompatible." Chen's eyes flashed with an intensity that made both alien delegations pause. 300 years ago, my ancestors slaughtered each other over differences in melanin levels in their skin and invisible territorial lines, drawn on a single planet. Now we explore the stars as one people. She gestured to Dr. Kazemi, who displayed the proposed communication protocols designed by the human team. The complex system integrated Archean crystalline resonance patterns and voidborn energy modulations through a quantum translation matrix that preserved intended meanings rather than just literal interpretations. "You've been misunderstanding each other for 3 millennia," Kazemi explained, walking both delegations through the technical specifications. "We can translate not just your words, but your intentions." Grand Resonator Zilixar studied the protocols, its crystalline form shifting through analytical configurations. "Even if this translation system functions as you claim, it changes nothing about the fundamental reality. The Voidborn seek to increase entropy in the universe, while we Archeans maintain quantum order." "Perhaps," Chen acknowledged, "but does that difference require genocide? On Earth, we have billions of individuals with different beliefs, values, and goals. We've learned, at tremendous cost, that diversity can be strength rather than weakness." She projected a new series of images, Earth's history of conflict, followed by scenes of former enemies working together, building together, exploring together. The Voidborn emissary's dark form pulsed skeptically. "And why would humans risk themselves in our ancient battle? What do you gain from this intervention?" Chen's answer was simple. "The stars should be explored, not destroyed. Your knowledge could help us avoid your mistakes, and both your civilizations possess scientific understanding that could benefit all species." She moved closer to the center of the chamber, intentionally placing herself equidistant between the delegations. "But more than that, this is what humans do. We build bridges where others see only chasms. We've spent our brief existence learning from our catastrophic failures. We want to spare you the pain of learning the same lessons." For a long moment, neither alien delegation responded. Then, almost imperceptibly, the Voidborn emissary's energy field contracted slightly. A gesture humans had come to recognize as contemplation. "We will consider your proposal," it said finally. Captain Chen allowed herself the smallest smile. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was something equally precious. Possibility. Admiral Teresa Oko stood on the bridge of the UES Peacekeeper, her small fleet of 20 ships positioned precisely between the massive Archean and Voidborn armadas in the contested Helios system. At 53, Oko had seen her share of conflicts during Earth's early expansion, but nothing compared to the tension of this moment. Positioning humanity's relatively primitive vessels between two forces that could annihilate them with casual ease. "Status report," she requested, her voice betraying none of the anxiety knotting her stomach. "Archean fleet holding position at coordinates 227.43 by 119.78, reported Lieutenant Commander Reyes, his dark eyes never leaving the tactical display. 16 capital ships, 42 support vessels, weapons systems powered but not targeting, and the Voidborn, maintaining their position at 186.21 by 119.82. 23 capital constructs, unknown number of smaller vessels due to their energy phase shifting. Their weapons are in what we believe is standby configuration. Oko nodded, studying the holographic representation of the system. The Helios test zone represented the first practical implementation of the human-brokered ceasefire protocols. After months of negotiations, both sides had agreed to withdraw to predetermined boundaries and establish a demilitarized zone monitored by human peacekeepers. It was a small-scale test of coexistence before attempting broader implementation. A warning chime sounded from the sensor station. "Admiral," called out Ensign Park, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the Voidborn positions. Their phase shift harmonics have increased by 18%. Oko felt the bridge crew tense. Under normal circumstances, such a change would trigger an immediate Arxian preemptive strike. "Incoming transmission from the Arxian command vessel," Rise reported. "They're requesting verification of Voidborn activity. Their targeting systems are coming online." 3,000 years of instinct and programming were asserting themselves. One suspicious reading, one misinterpreted signal, and the fragile ceasefire would shatter. "Move us closer to the Arxian line," Ocho ordered without hesitation. Her tactical officer looked alarmed. "Admiral, if they open fire..." Oko cut him off. "They won't. Neither side will risk killing humans." She tapped her communication panel. "This is Admiral Oko to all vessels. Advance to coordinates 225.85 by 119.80. Maintain standard defensive posture, but do not power weapons." As the human ships glided forward, positioning themselves directly in any potential line of fire between the Arxians and the Voidborn, Oko opened a channel to both fleets. "This is Admiral Teresa Oko of the United Earth Peacekeeping Force. We've detected a sensor malfunction in the Arxian monitoring systems. Our engineers are transmitting the calibration fix now." It was a carefully constructed fiction. There was no malfunction, but the explanation gave both sides a way to de-escalate without losing face. Her communications officer transmitted a complex data packet that would temporarily reset the Arxian sensors, buying them precious time. "Arxian fleet is acknowledging the transmission," Rise reported. "Their weapons are powering down. Voidborn energy signatures returning to baseline," Park added. Oko released the breath she'd been holding, aware that her uniform was damp with sweat beneath her command jacket. This was the third such incident in the 2 weeks since the DMZ had been established. Each time, human intervention had prevented a return to hostilities. Later that evening, in her private quarters, Oko recorded her daily report to Earth Command. "Day 14 of the Helios protocols," she began. "We averted another potential flashpoint today. The ceasefire remains intact, but fragile. Both sides are testing boundaries, looking for weaknesses, still trapped in patterns established over millennia." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "But there is progress. The Arxian response time to our intervention was 23 seconds faster than yesterday. The Voidborn accepted our explanation without demanding verification. Small steps, but in the right direction." Oko looked out her viewport at the distant lights of the alien Armaz. "This piece is balanced on a knife's edge," she continued softly, "and humans are the only ones crazy enough to stand on the blade. But we're still standing." Ocho out. The emergency alarms blared through the diplomatic vessel Olive Branch as Captain Chen rushed onto the bridge. The main view screen displayed real-time footage of the Arxian colony Xylos, or what remained of it, where a thriving settlement of 8 million had existed just hours before. A shattered planetary crust now vented magma into space. Fragments of crystalline structures, buildings, ships, and quite possibly people, drifted in expanding rings around the devastated world. "Status report," Chen demanded, her voice tight with controlled panic. Commander Jackson looked up from his station, his face ashen. The colony was hit 37 minutes ago. Energy signatures are consistent with void-born shadow cascaders. No warning, no declaration. Casualty estimates are. He swallowed hard. Total: 8,200,000 Arxian consciousnesses gone. The bridge fell silent except for the continuing alarms. 3 months of careful diplomacy, of incremental progress, wiped away in an instant of violence. The Arxian High Command has issued ultimatums to all void-born territories. Lieutenant Santos reported from communications. They're demanding immediate surrender or face quantum dissolution of all void-born spatial coordinates. Essentially, they're threatening to erase the void-born from reality itself. Incoming transmission from the void-born diplomatic channel, Santos added, surprise evident in her voice. The view screen shifted to show the familiar rippling dark energy form of their void-born liaison, its containment suit displaying signs of stress. It was the Purity Front, explained the void-born diplomat, its energy form fluctuating with what humans now recognized as extreme distress. Extremists who believe coexistence is corruption. They stole prototype weapons from a research facility. This attack was not sanctioned by the Empress or the Imperial Council. Chen processed this information quickly, remembering intelligence reports about resistance to the peace process among certain factions on both sides. The Arxians will never believe that, she replied, not without direct confirmation from your leadership. The Empress is in seclusion at the Imperial Nexus. The void-born diplomat responded. By the time conventional channels reach her, the Arxian retaliation will have begun. Millions more will die. Dr. Kazemi stepped forward from his observer position. Then we go directly to the Imperial Nexus. I need to reach the void-born Empress before the Arxians launch their counterstrike. Chen nodded, her mind racing through options. I'll take a separate team to the Arxian Supreme Collective. We need to convince both leadership councils that this attack was not sanctioned policy but the actions of extremists. Captain, Jackson interjected. Fats. The only option we have. Chen finished firmly. If we fail, the peace process dies along with billions more on both sides. Within 20 minutes, 2 teams had assembled in the shuttle bay. Dr. Kazemi would lead the mission to void-born space, accompanied by Dr. Williams, and a small security detail. Chen would take Commander Jackson and Lieutenant Desai to the Arxian homeworld. Both missions bordered on suicidal, human vessels entering the heart of potentially hostile alien territory during a crisis. As Chen completed the pre-flight checks on her shuttle, her communication panel lit up with an incoming priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Nguyen's stern face appeared on the small screen. Captain Chen, our sensors have detected the destruction of Tylos. Under no circumstances are you to involve human personnel in this escalation. The diplomatic mission is suspended pending Security Council review. Return to Earth immediately. Chen met the Admiral's gaze steadily. With respect, sir, by the time your review concludes, trillions will be dead. The peace process will be irretrievable. That's an order, Captain. Stand down. Chen glanced at Jackson and Desai, seeing the same resolve in their eyes that she felt in her heart. She switched off the communicator. Some orders have to be disobeyed, she said quietly. For the greater good. As her shuttle launched toward Arxian space, Chen knew they were now officially rogue operators. If they succeeded, they might save the peace process. If they failed, they would be remembered as the humans who couldn't prevent a genocide. Either way, humanity had crossed a line. From mediators to active participants, in the most consequential conflict in galactic history. 5 years after the crisis at Tylos, representatives from 28 spacefaring civilizations gathered in the newly constructed Harmony Dome in Geneva. Sunlight streamed through the crystalline void composite dome, a revolutionary material developed through Arxian and void-born collaborative engineering, symbolizing the unprecedented cooperation between the former enemies. At the center of the assembly stood Captain Eliza Chen, now Ambassador Chen, watching as the Arxian Prime Resonator and the Voidborn Empress signed the final documents of the Galactic Concordat. The two leaders used a ceremonial pen crafted from materials from both their homeworlds, their movements simultaneously awkward and deeply significant. "Never thought we'd see this day," murmured Admiral Okoa, standing beside Chen in her formal dress uniform. "Not after Xylos." Chen nodded, remembering the desperate days following the colony's destruction. Her unauthorized mission to the Arxian Supreme Collective had succeeded beyond all hopes. By presenting irrefutable evidence that the attack came from a splinter faction and showcasing the Voidborn Empress's immediate repudiation of the extremists, the human team had managed to pause the retaliatory strike with mere minutes to spare. "The final tally, please," requested the Secretary-General of the United Earth Government, addressing the Assembly. A human aide stepped forward with a data tablet. "The Galactic Concordat has been ratified by all principal signatories and 26 observer species. The treaty establishes permanent communication protocols, demilitarized zones in 17 formerly contested systems, and joint scientific missions between the Arxian Collective and Voidborn Empire. The peace remained fragile in places, but holding." Human-designed translation protocols had revealed that the original conflict began from a tragic misunderstanding about resource rights in a system both species had claimed. A scientific disagreement about the nature of reality had escalated beyond reason, fueled by misinterpretation and pride. Now, human diplomats staffed embassies on both Arxian and Voidborn worlds, while their scientists eagerly studied the advanced technology being cautiously shared by both former enemies. Earth had become the center of a burgeoning interstellar community, with trade routes and cultural exchanges flourishing where battle lines had once been drawn. After the ceremony, Chen found herself face to face with the Voidborn Empress, whose dark energy form had been modulated into a more humanoid shape as a gesture of respect. "Ambassador Chen," the Empress acknowledged, her voice now smoothly translated by the sixth-generation quantum interpreter. "My scientists tell me the new communication satellite network will be operational by your next solar cycle. It should reduce translation errors by an additional 83%. "Excellent news, Your Radiance," Chen replied with a formal bow. "The more clearly we understand one another, the stronger our alliance becomes." The Empress's energy field pulsed in a pattern Chen had learned to recognize as pensive curiosity. "How did you see what we could not?" she asked, echoing a question many had posed over the years. After 3,000 years of certainty that our conflict was inevitable and eternal, how did humans penetrate to the truth so quickly? Chen smiled, thinking of all humanity had endured to reach the stars. The wars, the environmental disasters, the near extinctions, and the hard-won unification of their fractious species. "Sometimes you need fresh eyes to see old problems," she said simply. "And humans are very, very good at surviving our mistakes long enough to learn from them." The Empress seemed to consider this, her energy field shifting through complex patterns, a valuable trait, perhaps the most valuable in this universe. As the celebration continued around them, Chen's communication implant chimed with an incoming priority message. It contained transmissions from deep space monitoring stations. 3 more ancient conflicts in distant sectors had requested human mediators. Species that had been fighting since before humans had discovered fire were reaching out to Earth for assistance. Chen excused herself from the Empress and stepped away to review the data. Humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. They had emerged from their cradle to find a galaxy locked in conflict, and through determination, creativity, and courage, they had proven their worth not through conquest, but through peacemaking. Where others saw only enemies, humans built bridges. Where ancient hatreds blinded, humans brought clarity. Where war had become a constant, humans introduced the radical concept of change. Humanity's gift to the stars wasn't technological superiority or military might, it was hope.